Hello, hello. Welcome back to the channel. So today we are doing a book tag, or a bookish tag, by creator Ariel. I'm not sure if it's Bisset or Bissett, but I saw it on Becca and the Books channel yesterday. So I am very, very behind on even just like looking through everything and putting it out there for sure. So apologies. But I thought it was interesting and it was fun, especially with some of the latter questions, to sort of get in there and look at my statistics and trends and all kinds of things like that. So I did want to do that this challenge tag. Mostly for the latter questions, but it also will give me a little bit of an opportunity to talk about some of the books I'm excited to read this month a little bit more in depth than I usually do. Though, like I said, should have probably done it in like September, October, as you'll see. All right, so let's get started. Oh, it's called the End of the Year Challenge. I don't remember if I had said that. So, first question, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? So I read multiple books at a time. Not sure if that's obvious. It should be obvious. I've said I'm a mood reader multiple times. And yeah, I tend to skip around. I'm like, you know what? I really feel like I want a couple hours of reading a romance, or no, I need some adventure, some action, sci-fi, topsy-turvy psychological thriller, like whatever like I'm craving, that's what I want to go do. It's the ADHD brain. And if I'm bored, I'd rather just switch to a different book and come back when I'm feeling in the mood for that type of book more so that I will enjoy it. Because if I'm making myself read something because I want to read, but I'm not in the mood for that book, then I'm not going to enjoy it and I'm going to rate it poorly because I didn't enjoy it. Anyways, so yeah, I'm reading a couple books right now, and the ones that I need to finish is two of them, Fellowship of the Ring and Xenocide. So Fellowship of the Ring I need to finish for the 52 book Connections Challenge. It's the last one I need. And Xenocide I need to finish for the letter X for the Alphabet Challenge. And yeah, that's the basics of it. But also, I'm really looking forward to these ones. I started Fellowship of the Ring today, and I'm realizing how much I either forgot, because I may have read part of this book if in like high school, but I've definitely seen the movies. And I read The Hobbit last year. So I don't know if I just forgot a lot about it or if I'm just picking up on more of it now that I'm doing a reread. I will definitely need a third read at some point because there's just a lot. It's a chunky book. So I will likely finish the entire series and then maybe in another year after I finish the series, try it again. It's a classic for a reason. It's good. At least I'm enjoying it so far. And then Xenocide, I have mentioned a couple of times now that I have been looking forward to reading this one for a while. I've said for years and years that one of my favorite books of all time was Ender's Game. I came across it in high school and it just really clicked with me and I really enjoyed it. And every time I've gone back to read it again, because I have read it like at least 3 or 4 times now, I just like it even more. Sometimes that liking it is not like I'm having a happy time. This last time I read it, I had some different emotions than I'd had before because I was realizing a lot more about what was going on and like the psychological trauma that was being inflicted on these poor kids and everything else. And I was just like, what is going on? And then there was the religious aspect. And anyways, I always get something new every time I read it, and I always enjoy the time I spend, and I never regret it. So I've said it for forever. But I didn't realize until last year that there were more books. I knew that there were 3, which apparently not. I knew of Ender's Game, and I knew of War of Gifts, which was a novella, and I knew of Ender's Shadow. Ender's Shadow is not even technically in the Ender's Game series. It's its own part of its own series. They're just like at the same time. And so, yeah, I had only read 2 of that series. And Speaker for the Dead was the one I read at the end of last year. And apparently it was the book that the author says they actually wanted to write, but they needed the first book to kind of set it up, so you'd understand what happened to this man, to make him the way he is. Because you kind of got to know that. It's a good book, and I really, really enjoyed it, but I don't think I would have enjoyed it as a kid and teenager. It's definitely as an adult, I really enjoyed the book, kind of situation. And I will probably end up reading it again at some point. This will be another series that I likely loop again in a few years. But I want to finish the series before I loop. So Xenocide is the next one in the series. And yeah, at some point I will have finished this series and likely move out to the entire universe and then loop, like I said. So looking forward to that. Next up. So originally this said, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? Well, we're officially in winter. I had snow this week. So I'm changing it up to, do you have a winter book to transition into the end of the year? And I mentioned this on, I think my last video, maybe the one before that, that I was looking forward to reading The Bear and the Nightingale, and I'm going to be reading it for Lightfall. So even though I've already got it on my phone, I can't read it yet. And I open Libby and I'm just like, oh yeah, I want to read. Oh, nope, don't do it. Because then you've got to redo your entire Lightfall situation. And we just did that. So not going to read it until Lightfall. Better believe it's going to be at the beginning of Lightfall, because it just sounds really interesting. Not necessarily on the like almost horror-y aspect, because it sounds like there's going to be some like scary monstery stuff going on, potentially. I only read the back, so I don't know. But it sounds like it, and that's not usually my jam, but I really like mythology and things that have a lot of lore in them generally, whether that's movie universes, book universes. I mean, obviously I'm going down the rabbit hole on multiple long series because I really, really enjoy having all that lore. And I don't know a lot about this particular mythology, or even this part of the world. So I'm interested in it. And yeah, that's probably one of the ones I'm looking forward to the most outside of the previous 2 that I mentioned. All right, new release I am waiting for. We kind of already touched on this one before, is that I don't know if I'm going to get Maiden Game in December. If not, I'll read it in January. I really want to read it in December because it feels like a fun themed book. It is paranormal romance, specifically werewolf romance. You've got 2 werewolves in this particular one, and those are all things that I really enjoy. I like paranormal romance. I like doing some things for the vibes, and yeah, so I was really looking forward to this one, and I was a little bummed that I might not get it in time to finish it for December. But if not, it's okay. It'll still be snowing in January, probably more than it is now. So I'm gonna try to look on the bright side of it'll still be snowing when I get to read it at some point. But I was really hoping to get it done this month. We'll see. All right, and this is the last one before we move into some of the more like lengthy discussion ones or statistics and analytics questions. So, what 3 books would I like to read before the end of the year? So the other ones were the first 2, Xenocide and Lord of the Rings, are ones I need to read by the end of the year, and now these are ones I would like to read before the end of the year. Difference being that these 3 are all part of Herkyed, so if I don't finish them, well, for Herkyed 2.0, if I don't finish them before the end of the year, I can roll them into January without any consequence other than the fact that I really wanted to finish the majority of the Herkyed 2.0 prompts this year. Because I want to start Herkyed 1.0 here pretty soon. because of course I do. I've added 2 new, what do you call them? Readathons to my hopes, dreams, repertoire for the future in the last week and a half. I'm going down a rabbit hole and finding so many fun things out there. Oh my goodness. But there's only so much time in a day. So, anyways, don't have time to wander today. Got too much going on. Voyage of the Damned. I started it at the end of last month, and then I had to put it down because I needed to finish some other books. And so I would like to finish this book out. I literally got, I think, maybe 10% into it, not very far at all. So I'd like to finish it just so that I can close it out for the year. But also, it just seems sort of interesting with how it is unrolling so far. I'm a little annoyed, and it isn't seeming to make sense on some of the politics of this book so far. Of like, literally, they're like, you can't. Okay, so you learn all of this in the first little bit, so it's not too bad of a spoiler. But if you would like to skip forwards, I understand. So far, we've been explained that only one person in your area of the royal lineage will have magic in their blood, and it is randomly determined by whose children were from the last person who had it. So the main character is the only son of the current king of a region, a lower region. There's a bunch of regions, and it's one of the lower ones. And he does not have magic. And it comes out that his dad is basically saying, like, no one can ever know that I have illegitimate kids out there. Apparently, so many he doesn't know which kid is potentially going to have magic. And so you're going to have to pretend like you have magic forever. And you've got to go on this, like, boat ride in order to, like, convince everybody, and then it'll be fine, because a war is going to start if we have another illegitimate heir of the magic, because the last time that happened, we went to war. And you're like, okay, that doesn't really make any sense, but okay, because A, he's not going to be able to pretend forever, and you're going to have some random person with magic out there eventually. Like, plus, his kids aren't going to get the magic, so it's going to come out at some point. Like, you're not going to hide it. I don't understand that. And then also, we've got another person who is an illegitimate heir with magic that you meet in the first 10% of the book. So it just doesn't make sense. And I'm like, okay, this is going to have to unravel in some kind of crazy way, but it's just not. Math's not mathin'. So I want to figure out if I'm actually just not going to enjoy it, or if something weird is going to go on and we're like, oh, that's why, and then like go off onto the adventure part of the book, because I haven't got to the adventure part of the book. And that was the reason I was looking forward to it originally, was because it's like, got a pirate ship and escaping and on the high seas and magic. And I was like, that could be fun. Anywho's, back to here. And of course, Wicked. I just saw the movie, so I have not gotten around to reading the book, but I have known every song in this musical since I was in high school. I want to say like sophomore year of high school, maybe junior year, definitely before senior year. We were in choir, or I was in choir, and all of my friends, we just had the music, and we would learn the music. I literally have the songbook over there, potentially 2 iterations of it. And I cried watching the movie, and it was just, the music it means a lot to me. So I would like to understand more about this, and I had asked for, I tried to get this book, but it's just been on hold for so long, and it's available, so it's finally available, so I'm going to be trying to get it read. Plus it is for her kid, so we'll get it done. And then the last one is the final book in the Outcast trilogy, The Black Tide. And I can't remember if the first book in this series is called Winter Halo or City of Light. I feel like it's Winter Halo and City of Light's the second one. I can't remember. But you've got, it's got all the things I enjoy. You've got romance, though it's not as heavy on the romance as a lot of Carrie Arthur's other series because it's a trilogy rather than like a longer series. And so you've got romance in there. You've also got paranormal aspects because you've got vampires and shifters and other types of creatures and ghosts and all kinds of fun things. And you're also solving like a mystery that involves corruption within cities and the government and all of these things. And you've got an underground sort of almost revolution, but it's not necessarily an underground revolution, but there's like an underground component to it. And it's just all kinds of fun. I am enjoying it. It's a little, I don't think this one's a light read though. It's got a lot in there. There's some children that were kidnapped and experimented on. So if that is a trigger or concern of kidnapping and abuse of children and experimenting on them, then that is not something for you, because it's even before we ever find, there are multiple instances throughout the book where they talk about like flashbacks on what happened to not just these kidnapped kids, but other kids in the past. So that it's not a light read at all, but I'm enjoying the story and I would like to finish it. Okay. And then we get into the ones that are more chit-chatty, I guess. So I have my other screen, well, one of my other screens over here with a bunch of analytics. So I will be looking back and forth, and that is what I'm looking at. So the first one says, what trends have you noticed in your reading this year? So I thought it'd be fun just to literally look at some stats generally. The month that I read the most books in so far, I only went through end of November since we're still in December, was September. And the one before that was August. Basically, it ramped up more or less after the summer, like during the summer and then through the summer. But the beginning of the year was like not as strong. So April was my lowest month, which was a little surprising. That's my birthday month, and I don't know why I wasn't really doing a lot of reading, but I only read 7 books in the month of April. That's like what, 1 point something per week. That's very, very low compared to what I was doing even back then. June and July, June and March were the next probably, June, March, and May were all around the 16 to 18 mark. And then after that, it really sort of took off. And then genre, which this one was interesting because it wasn't really necessarily what I thought. So romance is the top one I did. And I don't do as many romances, I feel like, now in the latter part of the year as I was doing at the beginning. And I've mentioned before that I put a lot of my contemporary romance series sort of on indefinite pause. And that's because I was reading a ton at the beginning of the year. Like, I don't know what was up, but I was in a mood to read romance. Lots of contemporary romance, which is 110 contemporary romances this year. 182 romances generally, but 110 romances that are contemporary, or 110 contemporary at all, and 182 romances. So contemporary romances themselves were 70. Sorry, I misspoke. I've got 3 categories here. So let's, I guess, back it out a little bit. Top 5 sort of overarching categories were romance at 45%, mystery, fantasy at 25%-ish, mystery at 12.5%, and then thriller and sci-fi are both at 7.3 to 7.5%. There are other types of books, obviously, like nonfiction and politics and things like that well, politics is actually also nonfiction, but just had its own category. But those are the main top 5. So most of my percentages for the year are going to fall into that. Then I looked at sort of subgenres. So all of my contemporaries I put together, all my paranormals, all my historical, even if it wasn't like necessarily a contemporary romance, it may be contemporary humor, contemporary mystery, contemporary fantasy, all of those. So contemporary was 27%. So apparently I am enjoying current modern era. Paranormal, which is the one I thought was going to win, was only 15.8%, 63 books. And that is like, if you ask me what I enjoy reading the most, that is probably what I would have said would be the top. And my thought is, once I started doing Herkyed, I kind of ended up having to diversify more instead of reading necessarily the things that I was always wanting to read, which had a lot more paranormal aspects to them. I was diversifying, which isn't a bad thing, but it means I wasn't going to have as high of a percentage on those as I would normally. Historical was 4%, 4.7%, and most of those historicals are going to be things like Agatha Christie, rather than, well, and also like I read some Jane Austen and some Charlotte Bronte this year, and those I didn't have anywhere else to put them. So I wouldn't necessarily say they are historical when we think about historical romance and things like that, in so much as that they were contemporary at the time, but they are now historical. So I don't know what we would call that. Maybe I miscategorized those, but books from the like 1800s and early 1900s. Oh, and I also got some Sir Arthur Conan Doyle in there too, so that would have fallen into there. Dystopian at 3.25%, and then cozy at just 2%. The top subcategories in general: contemporary romance at 70, paranormal romance at 58. Books, not percentages on this one. Fantasy romance, 37. Fantasy adventure, 30. And then, surprisingly, contemporary mystery and nonfiction tied at 24. So I was surprised by several things there. Ratings, surprisingly or not surprisingly, I mean, most were 3s. 204 were 3 and 156 were 4s. And I also noticed that at the beginning of the year, when I was just sort of saying what I felt rather than like writing down what I meant by what is a 3, what is a 4, what is a 2, etc., I felt like I was giving 4s a little bit more liberally. So at the beginning of the year, I had more 4s than I did at the latter part of the year, but I felt like I was enjoying my reading the same amount, if that makes sense. Audience, obviously most of the books I'm reading are adult, but and with young adult being the next in line. I was not surprised at all that children and middle grade together were still half of what the young adult is. So 2% for children, 4% for middle grade, 12% for young adult, and the remaining 81 for adult literature or adult books. Authors, my top 5 authors for this year, which I'm not surprised by most of these. Ilona Andrews, Shenan McGuire, and I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I did listen to a how to pronounce on the internet, but still probably didn't get it right. So sorry about that. And then Agatha Christie was the next in line, and that's because I'm working slowly as I get around to it, meandering through an Agatha Christie challenge over the next few years. It's not something that I plan on like just buckling down and doing, because there's a ton of Agatha Christie books, and that would take me the better part of a year most likely to read them all. And I would like to have more diverse reading. So I will get there eventually, but I got through 7 and I started that mid-year, so I'm averaging about 1-ish per month, if that makes sense. So I probably should do more next year just so that it's not going on forever on that challenge, but there you go. And then Allie Hazelwood was 7. Some of those were novellas. I believe 2 of them were novellas because she's done a few in combination or in partnership with like Amazon and other combos. What do you call those? They aren't series so much as they're collections. That's the word. She's done a couple collections and things along those lines. And then my last one was Tess Gerritsen, and that's because I was and am slowly but surely reading through the Rizzolian Isles books. I read through the Rizzolian Isles books, I read through the In Death ones, and I read through the Stephanie Plum novels. Those are all 3 authors I know, but they're similar thing, whereas if I need a break from whatever I am working through, or reading through, maybe I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna take a break. I need something that I know I'm going to enjoy. It's not going to take a lot of my brain power necessarily to concentrate, but I'll still have a great time. Those are ones I pick up. So obviously that happened 8 times this year. But yeah, that was where I was at. And then the last one is how many countries did I get through? I went through 25 countries. And I would not have tracked that normally, but hello, sorry about that. But it is on the tracker for Herkyed, and I went back in and put all of my books for the entire year into Herkyed, which was a lot. If you're curious, 398 items. I don't necessarily think they are all books because there are novellas in there, there's manga, short stories, etc. So they're not all books. I would say probably like maybe most of them, so maybe like 350 or so, were probably books. The rest are short stories, novellas, and etc. So, all right. So that is everything on that one. So let's pop to the next question. How do I feel about my reading goals? I feel like I don't really have reading goals, and I don't know that I want to go any more detailed into the reading goals than I already have. What I'm currently, or I have currently set as my reading goal is 150 books. And for 2026. For 2025, it was 104, I think. Essentially, I wanted to read 2 books a week. I may have rounded down to 100, but that was the goal essentially. And even then, I was like, I feel like the more specific I get on number of books, the less I'm going to want to read. I'd rather have things I'm excited about participating in and work through that as a reading goal. So I guess my reading goal then in that case would be just to have fun and also expand my reading into not necessarily things that make me uncomfortable, but things that help me grow or that just sort of expand my world in general. So I think that that's been going really well, and I'm happy about where I'm at so far. I mean, I still feel like I have some things that I read more of than others just because they're more comfortable or they are things that I really enjoy. And over time, I hope that that can expand and include more items, and more authors and more the more worlds and cultures and everything else. So there are things I fall back on still for sure, but I also have things that I'm looking forward to that I would have never come across if I hadn't picked up some of the challenges that I've done. I was literally just talking about a book with my boss today about Indigenous women who had disappeared in Canada over decades, and I read the book last year for Pop Sugar, and I would have never known about that period of time or the ongoing issues that are surrounding all of that, and those women who'd gone missing. Had I not been doing Pop Sugar, because I would have not read the book. So I think that makes me feel like I'm accomplishing the goals. That's probably the way I'll go with that. Is there anything I want to change or abandon? Not necessarily. I do think that I am doing a lot of challenges because I am a completionist and I like to have everything done. And that could potentially become a problem. So I may need to, at some point, drop some of what I would consider more simple challenges that I do, where I maybe only have to think about maybe 10 books over the course of the year. So for example, the 50 States Challenge. I've been doing that one this was my second year, and I plan on doing it next year. But I may get halfway into the year and realize that I just don't have the bandwidth to hit up the 10 states I don't see on the regular. By the time I get to the end of the year, I'm going to be stressed out again. And I may just need to learn to say, it's okay. I had fun for that for a couple years. Maybe we try something new instead of something additional. Same thing for my alphabet soup ones. I have done them for 2 years now. I enjoy them, but it's getting a little stressful in December because I did it to myself. I restarted the challenge so that I could do it in tandem with Herkyed, and that was a poor choice. So I think that I just need generally to learn to say, let's pivot and try something new rather than let's try something new and keep all of the old as well. And we'll see how that goes through the next year. Because right now I am looking for ways to share the challenges that I'm doing that are, I guess, more intricate. And the other one's just like letting them be in the background and I fill them in and then see where I'm at halfway in the year and if I really care about them. If I really want to finish them, or if I'm really close and I only have a few more to do, just because that's how things are going. But and that's more of a personal development probably topic than a reading goal that I need to change. More of a learn to choose the things that bring me joy and let go of things that are not as fun once they've brought me the joy they have and I no longer find joy in them. So, anyways, that was a lot for a book reading tag. Have I already started making reading plans? Yes, I have. You couldn't tell. I plan on doing Herkyed 1.0. I am looking at Romanceopoly, which I actually thought it was a lot of fun. I saw it 2 days ago. I told you it's been a week of just finding fun things to do. But I saw it, I think, 2 days ago, and it looks adorable, and there are some great graphics and all kinds of things like that. And I was like, but I don't read as much romance as like I used to. And then I started thinking about it. And I'm like, no, you really probably still do. You read a couple of romances every single month. And you definitely read at least one because of book club. And usually, you get a couple more because they show up in rotation on other book clubs or they fit into challenges. And I'm like, so you probably do read quite a bit. And then I was doing statistics today for prepping for this video. And I was like, oh boy. Nope. For the whole year. Even if we say I, pivoted halfway through the year and I only, I did more at the beginning half of the year for romances. I read a lot of romances. So I think that'll be fun. And then additionally, a couple of like Pop Sugar I already mentioned. I'm probably not going to really do a whole lot with until after quarter one's over, but I am doing 52 books. I decided not to do their newest side quest line, at least not this year. I just don't have the bandwidth to do that as well, and it's very similar to the 52 books, so I'm just going to leave that one alone. And then I still want to do Pop Sugar. I already said that, but there's another one that I plan on doing, another 2 And I may try to stagger them and be like, okay, we will do them, but we're going to sort of see where we're at and what can fit prompts that you've already done after the first quarter, and then what's left, and then bring those in and try to stagger it that way so it's less stressful and less planning all at once. Because what I don't want to happen is that I go crazy on the I'm having so much fun planning, and then I realize I have planned 700 books. Because that's not really feasible. So my goal and my rule for myself is that I don't use the same book for multiple sub challenges, like challenges within the same family. So I can't use it for a mini challenge and the main challenge, but I can use the same book for multiple challenges. So if I read a book for 52 books, I can also read it for Herkyed 1.0, and I can also read it for um, the first letter of its title, or etc. Whatever the ones I was doing, Romanceopoly or locations or any of those things. And I think that that is how I'm going to try to structure the more like, sort of the fun. Is like, okay, you've already picked all your books for Herkyed and most of your books for 52 books. Let's focus on those with maybe a couple of additional fun that just come across that I love. But when you finish a book, take like 10 minutes and think about the book and what you really like about the book and what you learned from the book, and also where can it fit? Does it fit any of these prompts? Did it make you think of maybe the next one in the book in the series that may have something to do with it? So I think that's so yes, I am making plans, but I'm also choosing to not make plans on some things. And that is a plan in and of itself. That's not confusing at all. Definitely is. Anyways, thank you for coming along with me on the likely wild ride of rambling for the last, how long? Half hour-ish. And I will see you guys next time. If you have any plans for next year, I meant to say this before, let me know. Like, what challenges are you really, really looking forward to? I may have already looked at them. I may have not. As I evaluate what I want to do for next year and what brings joy, let me know if there are ones that you really, really like and you think that they are amazing. I'd like to check them out. So let me know in the comments, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.